people who are impoverished and rural feel very disenfranchised. And one of the things that I learned most, like I think prominent for me, where I grew up, Republicans were wealthy. If you're wealthy, you're a selfish person and you're going to vote Republican.
Right.
But meeting Republicans who are working class and blue collar, it was this kind of like, I don't know, this like, you know, stuff kind of shattering and understanding, no, these are people that are so similar. Like problems in rural white America are very similar in terms of class struggle and, you know, jobs that impoverished people of color in inner cities have. But just how they're spun differently, how politicians manipulate these populations differently. Yeah, it's how much they're divided when really there is so much similarity there. So I was interested in urban planning to begin with because my parents come from rural India. And I wanted to help people in rural areas. And now I'm in urban planning.
Right.
But like that, just that connection, I had forgotten about it.
Did their history, was that something that they carry with them in a really obvious way, like when you talk to them or growing up, you heard like stories about it, or is it just something that you kind of know about but didn't really?
Oh no, every day. Like, oh, I walk to school 10 miles a day, and no, it was very front and center. Made you appreciate everything that you worked for, and that's another thing. This myth of like, well, people want handouts. No, nobody wants handouts. People want jobs. People want opportunity. People want access. Yeah, so that was, you know, that was very front and center.
Yeah, that there's a parade. Sorry, that's the one thing about this place that's strange. It's like with the window there, people just sometimes they'll stop and they'll tap on the window and try to ask you questions and stuff. And it's like I don't lip read. I don't know what you're saying. So yeah, it's always very distracting. I need a curtain or something that I can close. Anyway, yeah, no, that's. You were okay, front and center, right? I had a point to that question, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I distracted myself completely. Anyway, yeah, well, I guess what I was getting at was that sort of informed your desire to be involved in planning and to help, to be a part of the people that figure that stuff out, like how to apportion resources and, provide infrastructure and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So in urban planning, it's not just urban stuff they teach you, right?
No.
That's just the name.
Yeah,
Right,
so usually programs are urban and regional planning or urban and rural planning. Urban planning, it's whatever the label is for the program you're in. But it's teaching you just, you could be working in a town of 200 people or in a town of 20 million people. And it's about how do you get people what they need and what they want in a way that's sort of fair to everybody or in a way that's equitable. Yeah, it's really hard to explain. Yeah.
Well, no, I kind of get the idea.
The hard part is it's basically like making these abstract concepts physical. So anywhere you go, there's, in the medical profession, in engineering, in all these schools, they have this this commitment to social justice and this commitment to improving the world we're in. But when it comes down to okay, how much money are you going to allocate to this service right here? That's where people start backing off. And it's really nice to have these ideals and these values, but when you come down to, okay, well, we literally need a square block in downtown to put in a homeless shelter. It's like, well, do you really need it in downtown, or can we just put you out in the middle of nowhere somewhere?
Right.
Because this property is so valuable. So when you actually come down to the physical, which is physical presence, is something that is basically the center of our focus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's similar to I work in preservation, and we consistently run into situations where it's like, okay, here's this historic place. It should be saved, is what I'm out there saying. And then the person who doesn't want to save it is like, well, can't afford it. It's not making any money. It's going to cost too much to fix or whatever. Are you going to give me the money to fix it up? And then I'm like, oh, it's not my job to give. I find myself always in the same position of like, well, I can't do that. I can't affect your situation in terms of, I don't know how to explain it, but I've had someone sitting on the other side of a desk and saying to me, I can't afford that. I don't have the money to fix this up. It's too far gone. And I have people, they're pointing at me, telling me that I should fix this place up, that I shouldn't, do this to it, I shouldn't do that to it. I can't do it. I don't have that money. Where is that money? How do I get it? And I have no answer for them. Because it isn't about money, and that's the thing. There are so many things that money shouldn't be part of this question, but in a society where everything is somehow connected to money, it's there, whether it should be or not. So I was just reading earlier some news thing that if somebody was rehashing the old, this is old news, it's a couple years old, the CEO of Nestle. Do you remember this? No. He was talking about water, and it was on some Senate thing, and they were questioning him, and somebody made a comment about people having the right, a right to water as a fundamental right, and he was saying, well, no, that's, you can't put it that way, or something basically saying, no, there is no fundamental right to water. We have the right to buy all the water we want, and if it doesn't work for other people, too bad, because it's our water, and of course he was vilified for that. But when it gets that far into it, it's like, well, wait a minute. At what point can you say, no, wait, there is something that is more important than money?
Yes, and this brings up water issues. The most liberal people in California right now, we have water sanctions because of the drought.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of letting their acres and acres of green lawns, die, they're digging up wells to circumvent the sanctions.
Yeah.
Or they're trucking in water and just not understanding, water is a finite resource. Mm-hmm. And people jump to desalination plants. And it's just this idea of, our quality of living cannot be affected. So there's this great infographic that shows okay, if everybody on Earth had the same quality of living as the U.S., we would need 5 planet Earths to support it.
I remember reading that somewhere. Yeah, something like that.
But we can't touch the idea of lowering our standard of living.
Right.
And when you do, then you result in the political debacle that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And something should not be commodified. So this brings me to my favorite Republican, Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Him and John Muir and Ansel Adams played this huge role in preserving the national parks of the United States.
Right.
And yes, we have, so today environmental preservation takes the form, or conservation takes the form of, solar roofs and CO2, carbon, what are they called? Carbon, when you exchange carbon, carbon caps and...
yeah, cap and trade?
Yes, cap and trade, thank you. So, but it's still commodified.
Yes, yeah.
And I think one of the best things about the national parks is that there's this line in whatever the declaration was, that they shall be preserved for the future enjoyment of others.
Right.
And that line in and of itself just takes out, so it always comes down to, let's have everyone at the table and let's make a decision. And this just creates this entity that it's well, you can't speak for them. Mm-hmm. You can't speak for future generations. And you need to preserve this for them. Mm. So the national parks can provide zero profit and can, be a detriment on public resources in terms of money, but you need to preserve them.
Right.
Because they, in and of themselves, they have an inherent value.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, by the way. As a preservationist, I fully confirm that is the case. Well, I think there are a lot of things like that, though. I mean, as an artist, most of my life I was a musician. That's what I did. And consequently, I had to have any number of other jobs on the side so that I could afford to be a musician, because I didn't get paid. In fact, musicians to this day still get paid pretty much what I did when I was first starting out. It hasn't gone up much. Either you're rich and famous or you don't get anything for what you do. And this is true for all sorts of artists, painters and sculptors and poets and whoever else. There are a few that make lots of money doing it, and then most of them make nothing.
Wow.
And you would think that with as much as we love music and we love art and we love all those things, that we would be willing to give something for it, but we're not, really. And I'm not either. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to buy that. I'll just listen to it, and I'll be bored with it anyway. I get that kind of thinking myself. I don't know where I was going with that, but
Yeah, and those things were commissioned too. Like the artists were commissioned by FDR during the Depression.
Yes.
And I think we really have lost sight of like how much good public funding does.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we're all. So I was talking to my friend about like you just get people used to a very low standard of living, and it stunts their creativity. It stunts the possibilities that they're open to. So if you go to a place like Taiwan, if you go to a place like Sweden where healthcare is just basic, like you can tell them you're gonna charge them 80% in taxes, but they'll never give up healthcare because it's, of course, why on earth would you commodify your health?
Right.
But here we've gotten used to, well, you're gonna get nickeled and dimed. Healthcare is so outrageous. It's an impossibility.
Yeah.
And that's what we've gotten used to. So now whenever somebody gives us anything, it's like, yes, I'll take it.
I'll take it. I don't care what it is. It's free. Give it to me. Yeah. I guess that could do a whole show about capitalism, I suppose.
Sorry.
It's such a big topic. It infects so many things. It's like a disease that infects so many different things. And this election, very expensive. Billions, I think, at least $1 billion or something like that they've spent so far. It's ridiculous. It's just really ridiculous. Anyway, we're not through yet, but we've come a long way. I'm sort of lost as to where there's so many different points we could pursue here, that we could go off in different directions. So the future, where do you see yourself like 5 or 10 years from now?
Gosh, you're gonna make me talk about this on radio?
Well, you don't have to if you don't want to. I'm sorry. I should have cleared this with you beforehand.
No, I'm really not sure. I have no idea. I think one of the catch-22s is I am open geographically to anything, and I love my field so much that I'm pretty sure I'll be happy in like 95% of opportunities out there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm open to going anywhere, and as long as I can like make an effective difference somewhere.
So you just wanted an opportunity to practice your art.
Yes.
Somewhere.
Yes.
In a situation that will allow you to like be a part of that decision-making process.
Yes, and like an integral part, because it's
right.
There's a lot of paper pushing, and there's a lot of not being able to break out of the norms of stuff. But yeah, there's no like grandiose like want to change the world. It's just like want to change the world, like a small piece of somebody's world for the better, and that'll be good.
That sounds good. Stay in the U.S.? Maybe?
Possibly. Or at least return to the U.S. Yeah. But for now, I'm open globally. Would love to go internationally. So, yeah.
Just try it out somewhere?
Yeah. I'm developing my capstone on Brazil right now.
Ah.
Yeah. Northeastern Brazil. It's a city called Fortaleza. And they're going through the same issues that seem to be appearing everywhere. Gentrification, displacement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you speak Portuguese?
I'm learning.
Ah,
Yes.
oh, you're way ahead of me. I bom dia.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I think I used to know a couple other things. It's just enough like Spanish that it just confuses me no end. It's like, wait, what? It sounds like I ought to know this, but I just don't. I don't know it.
It makes you really doubt yourself if you know any Spanish at all. Because 90% is good, like the same, but then you think it's the same and it's not.
Yeah. That sounds difficult. That's what I have to really admire. A shout out to international students. I have to really admire that they come here, many of them not speaking English as their first language, and somehow manage to do the same thing that people from here do in a language that isn't even all that familiar to them.
Yeah,
It's like, wow, I could barely stumble through anything in any other language,
Yeah, and I don't think enough people appreciate that. So I know that other countries have this year after you graduate from high school, which is either you have to do some sort of service year.
Yeah.
So it could be military service or it could be community service. And that's just such a great opportunity. And GFK tried to facilitate this with the Peace Corps. But you go abroad and you like go anywhere, and that's your year to like just learn and struggle.
Yeah.
And grow up. And I think, unfortunately, we don't have that here. But I think, like, I grew up with immigrant parents, but when I went and lived in Germany on my own for the first time, that was when I realized how much I appreciated, like, my parents' ability to speak English.
Oh.
Like, I'd kind of grown up, and I'm like, okay, my parents don't speak great English, but I get to Germany, and I'm just like, a fish out of water kind of thing, and struggling through. And I remember being able to order my first drink all by myself, got it right, and it was just this small, tiny victory.
Yeah.
And I remember that now whenever someone's like struggling to express themselves emotionally in English or trying to understand a concept or explain a concept, because so often it's like, oh, you don't speak English, you don't have anything valuable to say.
Yeah.
Or you don't speak English, and it's a marker of your intelligence when it's so frustrating. You have ideas.
Yeah.
You want to express them. Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah. I can only imagine the struggle of doing something like that. I put myself in situations where I'm around people that speak other languages just so I can kind of absorb it. I'm not really learning the language, but it sharpens my ability to read people, like physically and body language and the sound of their voice. Like I won't watch a foreign film that's dubbed in English. I'll do it with subtitles, but I want to hear the voice. I want to hear the way they say things and stuff like that. I don't know why it's important to me, but I just feel like it's part of communication is learning to like look in somebody's eyes or look at the way they move or react or whatever to kind of get a sense of them, of what they're saying. And I don't know, it's just really interesting to me. And once again, I don't know where I was going with that. That's the problem, I guess. In a regular conversation, it wouldn't matter where I was going, but on the radio, I feel like I am a host on the radio. I'm supposed to be like leading us to a point where I go blah blah blah, and you go, oh wow, yeah, that's amazing. You got there just like that. But I often don't have any point whatsoever.
Well, I think it's going great.
I'm just talking.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as you don't. As long as you're okay and I'm okay, then I'm hoping the listening audience, wherever you may be, are okay. I don't know. But have I expressed my tension over the election that's happening tomorrow?
No, I don't think adequately.
Do I look tense?
I am just sad. Like this, yeah. I've cast my vote already.
Oh, you did? Good.
I just don't know. Like, a friend of mine told me that it took him 2.5 hours to vote yesterday at the Arc.
There was that much of a line?
Yeah, and
Oh.
you know, somebody showed up and said nope and left, and that's early voting.
Wow.
I don't know.
Did you? There are lots of propositions and stuff. Did you vote on all that stuff? I mean, is that how it works when you're out of state and you're voting?
Yes.
You get the ballot from wherever you're from? Okay.
Yeah.
So were you up on all those different propositions that are going
Yes,
on right now?
and
Oh,
I
cool.
posted my vote
Good
to
job.
social media. It's Dave Chappelle does this skit where, you know, if you're not proud of who you're voting for, you're doing something wrong. Wrong. You should
Yeah.
be proud of, you know, don't be ashamed of how you're voting.
Right.
Yeah, but we had a lot of great measures on the ballot. Everything from the most popular, legalizing marijuana,
Right.
to eliminating the death penalty, to eliminating plastic bags, to I don't even know. Multiple measures to increase taxes in order to fund social services like healthcare and education.
Right.
So, a lot of good stuff, a lot of positive stuff.
That's good. Wasn't there a tricky one on there that somebody was, or maybe this isn't California. Somewhere was this weird, tricky solar power thing that was actually like written up by the power companies to make solar power more expensive or something.
Oh, wow.
Where was that? Like Arizona.
That might have,
I don't
yeah.
know where it was, but I remember reading about this. Like people were saying, "Watch out for this thing because it's tricky, and if you
Yeah.
don't read it really carefully, you'll get it wrong." There are a few of those floating around out there. It creeps me out how nefarious political operatives can be to try to circumvent democracy. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we're supposed to just like, if everybody knows what it is, then you go with the most people who agree with this thing. But people are like so convinced they're right that they want to trick people into getting it because they think that everybody's wrong or something. I don't know. It's very strange the way it works, but there's so much scheming, I guess you'd call it, particularly on those propositions because they can be so difficult to read, you know.
They are difficult to read. You got to sit down and like make sure you know your double negatives, because that's ridiculous. So, yeah, there were a few, and luckily I found this like nonpartisan informational thing for the ballots, website for the ballot in California, and I'm hoping there's one for every state. But it's you need to put time into those.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that matter. Like I voted with an absentee ballot because I care about the ballot measures.
Right.
I mean, yes, I care about president and everybody else, but I also care like locally
Right.
what's happening back home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have that around here so much. I mean, there are a couple of things. There's like a sales tax that's kind of a sneaky jails tax that's on the ballot here, and what was the other one? There's a school referendum, which I'm kind of opposed to because they want to take that money and tear down a bunch of houses and tear down old schools and build new ones and things that are just like, oh, wait a minute, I can't support that. But yeah, we don't have like that same number of things in Illinois. For some reason, you don't have like 40 or 50 different, citizen inspired what would you call them, propositions, I guess, on the ballots. There's usually like one or two things, and it's never very long, and I don't know why that is. It must be something about our Constitution that doesn't really lend itself to that sort of thing happening. Because I know in some states, like California, usually has a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
There's like
20 at least.
Yeah.
20.
And I've never seen more than 2 or 3
Huh.
on any election around here that I've ever voted for.
That's interesting. That makes me want to look more into this.
Yeah, I should try and figure out why that is, because it seems like it must mean something.
It does.
I have no control. I'm a pawn of the rigged system, as Donald would say. Well, we're down to the last... I don't have my glasses on. Oh, last 5 or 6 minutes here. Is there anything you were hoping to say that you haven't said yet?
I just thought of something right
Yes.
now.
Okay, cool.
One of the scariest parts of this election to me, or one of the most defining points, was like the president that we elect is going to be president for potentially 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a young millennial in college. Like, I don't know where my life is going. But
Yeah.
let's see. I'm 25. In 8 years, I could potentially have kids. And
Possible.
I think everybody who is in Champaign-Urbana needs to like think critically about the person who is going to be leading the country when you choose to have kids. Like,
Yeah.
we're all 18. In 8 years, it's very feasible that, you know, a lot of us are going to be parents. And
Mm-hmm.
the type of atmosphere and an environment that you grow up in is going to shape you forever.
Yeah, that's true.
I grew up during the Clinton era, the era, quote unquote, of plenty, and that shaped us. Local measures, who you grew up with, all of these things matter.
Yeah.
So it's not this won't be just like a glitch if we mess it up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, this is really important. It's really important. I mean, it's already, as we were talking about earlier, it's brought all these things out. But to me, it seems like we can either repudiate some of it in a big way, or we can sort of endorse it in this election. And I know there are people who are dying to endorse it because they've been fed up for years, and they just feel like, oh, this political correctness, it just, whatever it is they're thinking is, they're just dying to get it. This is like a giant referendum, I guess, in a way, on whether it's okay to be racist and bigoted and sexist and homophobic and all these different things or not. It's, in a way, that's what it comes down to in my mind, is it okay to do this or not? If it's not okay, then say so. If it's okay,
Yeah.
then
And-
don't say so.
And just, very briefly, like, economically speaking, Arizona did say so. They did say it's not okay to be brown. And quite frankly, there are studies that show that Arizona and all other agricultural states that adopted policies like the one in Arizona tanked. Because people left. They're like, all right, you don't want us here, we're leaving.
Yeah, okay. We're gone. See you later. Yeah. Well, we'll know 24 hours from now. I'm so nervous. Yeah. Okay, well, we got about 2 minutes. I guess we should call it a day. If you ever want to come back, feel free. I always enjoy talking to you. We won't have this, hopefully, to talk about anymore. It's really interesting. Last point, Immigration Forum, which I'm a member of, we're planning on having a regular monthly meeting is usually tomorrow night, but we're not going to have it. We're going to have it the following week, and it's going to be basically a decompression, like, here's what just happened, what are we going to do about it?